The third studio album from the British singer-songwriter Jermaine Scott Sinclair, more commonly known as Wretch 3.2, comes 5 years after his last album release. Between then and now, with his latest project entitled Growing Over Life, Wretch has continued to have moderate success in the charts despite such a gap between his second and third album, scoring a couple of charting singles as a guest feature. All of the songs from this project that have been released as singles so far have yet to see any real success on the singles charts, barring one song. And having listened to this album, it personally baffles the mind, since for the majority, this new album is more than competent enough and has plenty of merit to it. The two main themes this album addresses are Wretch's past, growing up wanting to achieve something in his life, and his relationships, both past and present. Both take up the majority of this album and both responsible for some pretty decent tracks. Regarding the first topic, you've got songs like Pressure, where he talks about the difficulties and adversities that he experienced growing up and how his friends and family seemingly put a lot of pressure on the man to do something with his life, and how this pressure has moulded him into the person he is today. All a Dream highlights the negativity he experiences from people who are thriving on the image of Wretch failing and attempt to pull him down in the process, yet this only causes the guy to want to keep striving and achieve more success in the future. And Open Conversations and Mark Duggan starts off as a reflection of Wretch growing up in his hometown of Tottenham and how he would rough it on the daily, building up to his current position where life is much better for him, and the second half of the song diverts severely into a closing monologue delivered after the death of Mark Duggan at the hands of the UK police, and brief mentions of racial profiling, a topic that's a little more prominent on the song Liberation, which also briefly mentions police brutality. The second topic of relationships are found on Take Me As I Am, where Wretch admits to being a man with many faults, someone who is far from perfect but that he'll try his best to be a gentleman for his woman, ending on a skit where he and his woman have a vocal conflict over balancing time with work and commitments with this girl. He blesses his fortune for his ex having his 2 children on the track 6 Words, the humorous and oddly charming Cooked Food, where he claims to love his woman as much as said title, and Something, where despite being surrounded by quote hoes, none of them compare to his current woman. Other tracks include the album's opener, the chorusless Antwi, which covers a number of topics, which include breakups, escaping death as a child, his aspirations for the future, and mentions being a pallbearer at his grandmother's funeral. I.O.U, which is a touching homage to his sister and his mother, and the album's closing track, Church, where Wretch shows his gratitude to his faith for helping him steer him away from what could have resulted in a completely different and sinful life in comparison to the one he's living now. Instrumentally, this album veers away from grime to focus on the more hip-hop and R&B elements, also throwing in some elements of gospel as well, and for the most part there are plenty of standout moments. Antwi starts off with the sound of rain and thunder before being taken over by brief spurts of bass-heavy horns along with synth strings and synth melody, which results in this dark and unnerving aura which is just gorgeous. All a Dream is a really sweet synth-driven track that's both light and danceable, having a great EDM quality to it. The stabbing staccato piano chords with beeping sound effects on Take Me As I Am, along with intermittent acoustic and bass guitar melodies throughout. The piano-led Cooked Food with strings just adds bucket loads to this song's charm and likability. The gospel-inspired Church never ceases to bring a smile to my face, whether it's the harmonies, the echoing finger snaps, fluttering piano, it's too enjoyable for words. And I.O.U is easily the best example on this album of instrumentation that complements the song's tone perfectly. The haunting backing vocals lingering in the background with a simple drum beat, strumming guitar, subtle bass line in the song's undercurrent, and brief piano, everything is drenched with such an earnestness that it's undeniably my favourite song on this album. If there were some moments on this album that didn't grip me as much, they could be found on Liberation, which, look, I admire addressing a topic such as this one, but for me, I've heard it done so much better in other songs this year. The first half of Open Conversation is fine, but the switch up I find very jarring. It simply doesn't transition all that well, and I know this will ruffle a few feathers, but I can't stand 6 Words, and it's easily this album's weakest link. Yes, it starts off pretty enough, but the drum beat feels very out of place and manic and doesn't gel well with the other instruments, and is highly distracting. The song itself is incredibly saccharine, and considering the song's topic, the lyrics are very repetitive and they are dying to be fleshed out so much more. Was this the best that Wretch could come up with? It's not like he's not capable. I.O.U proves that, so what's the excuse here? Nevertheless, I do think this album is very good, and I personally chalk this one up as another solid album from a developing British artist who has shown an evolution over the last few years and has managed to produce some mature and emotionally impactful songs that have plenty of appeal and resonance on me as a listener. Overall, I score this album a 7 79 out of 100.